If you're a graduate looking for jobs in the UK, you'll know how terrible the market is at the moment. Recent data from the job search website Indeed shows that UK graduates are now facing the toughest job market since before the pandemic, with the number of graduate job postings down 33% compared to last year, and at their lowest level since 2018. Meanwhile, competition for grad jobs is at record highs, with the Institute for Student Employers citing an average of 140 applications per vacancy in 2023-24, the highest number for over 30 years. So in this video, we'll take a look at the UK's graduate job crisis and try and explain why vacancies are falling. Dive deeper into politics with our magazine Too Long. Yep, we make a real physical magazine. In the latest issue, we discuss if Starmer just has no vision for Britain, if Farage could become Prime Minister, and ask if we're observing the end of the American order. Find out more by clicking the link in the description. To start with, let's look at the recent state of grad jobs in the UK. In the 90s and 2000s, the UK's graduate job market expanded, thanks to a rise in structured grad schemes, especially in law, consultancy and finance, and the so-called milk round style of recruitment, which saw companies visit university campuses to hire students. After the 2008 financial crash, the UK's job market cooled for a few years, before recovering throughout the 2010s with graduate recruitment increases in industries like IT, finance and banking. At the same time as competition increased, internships, work experience, and placements became common, with vacancies often going to graduates who'd previously done work experience. But in 2020, things were massively disrupted by the pandemic, when companies cancelled or delayed their grad schemes and stopped hiring. This created a multi-year backlog of graduates who were all competing for the same jobs once the pandemic ended. While there was an initial spike in hires between 2021 and 2022, the job market has since cooled, with fewer jobs and far more competition. Importantly, while this trend does seem to be affecting the entire UK job market, it's more pronounced among grad jobs. According to the Financial Times, real-time data from the job search website Adzuna shows that in the past 3 years, a gap has opened up between overall job vacancies and graduate job vacancies specifically, with grad vacancies falling at a much faster rate. Meanwhile, graduate salaries are lagging, having increased more slowly than non-graduate salaries since 2022. Of course, fewer graduate vacancies means more applications per place, i.e. more competition. In its 2024 student recruitment survey, the Institute for Student Employers, or ISE, found that the mean organisation received 140 applications per vacancy in 2023-24, a 59% increase compared to the previous year, and the highest ever since the ISE started collecting data in 1991. The most competitive sectors by some way were in digital and IT, 205 applications per vacancy, and finance and professional services at 188 applications per vacancy. But even on the less competitive end, the charity and public sector still received 74 applications per vacancy. And graduate jobs aren't well distributed across the UK either. The ISE survey found that a huge share of grad jobs were in London, which takes nearly half of all graduate hires, with 53% of graduates recruited in London and the South East. Meanwhile, graduates based outside of London are increasingly taking jobs that don't require a degree. A 2023 Institute for Fiscal Studies report found that 42% of university-educated workers outside of London were working jobs that don't require a degree, up from 31% in 1993. With the highest shares in Lincolnshire and Cumbria at 58 and 52% respectively. So many graduates feel, sometimes reluctantly, that they have no choice but to move to London in order to find a job, which risks exacerbating regional inequality in the UK. So where does this graduate job crisis actually come from? Well, there's a lot to say here, but we largely have three main ideas. First is the UK's over-qualification crisis, which we previously made a video on that's linked in the description, which is itself related to the UK's growing production of graduates. Second are the current economic pressures, and third are recent and emerging factors like the rise of AI. Let's start with overqualification though. According to the OECD's 2024 survey of adult skills, people in England are more likely to be overqualified for their job, in other words, have more educational credentials than required, than any other OECD country. England also shows the second lowest correlation in the OECD between the number of years in education and the odds of being overqualified. In other words, spending more years in education only slightly increases your odds of ending up overqualified. At first glance, this might sound like a good thing, and seems to imply that education is still worth it in the UK. However, what this probably actually means is that the UK's overqualification crisis is so bad that it's not just people with postgrad degrees and PhDs who end up being overqualified, but rather that basically everyone with any sort of tertiary education, even if it's just a bachelor's degree, is apparently at risk of ending up in a job below their education level. If people with PhDs, master's degrees, and bachelor's degrees are all ending up overqualified, then this weakens the correlation between the number of years someone spends in education and their odds of being overqualified. What this means is that graduates are increasingly taking jobs in sectors that are not directly related to their degree subjects, or even ones that don't require degrees. This might look like art graduates working in hospitality due to a lack of jobs in film or TV, or humanities graduates taking jobs in HR, customer service, or marketing with little career progression. While transferable skills are a valuable asset, these examples suggest a structural problem in the UK, where growth in higher education isn't matched by growth in high-skilled jobs. The second reason is the broader economic situation. Since the pandemic, businesses have struggled with higher costs, impacting their ability to take on new employees, and in some cases forcing job cuts and redundancies. The UK's Big Four accounting firms, for instance, have cut back on early career hires in recent years, as have most big consultancies. Since graduates and early career employees are often the first to be let go when companies face economic pressures, it's little surprise that graduate vacancies have been falling. However, reports suggest that another big reason is AI, as firms increasingly use tools like ChatGPT to do the administrative work previously done by junior employees. Although we don't have enough evidence to draw a direct link between AI and declining grad vacancies, some commentators have suggested that AI might be impacting lower levels of recruitment, especially at professional services firms. Indeed, figures from June showed that overall job postings in HR and project management are now 27% below their pre-pandemic level, 37% lower in marketing, and 48% lower in media and communications. While not all of these losses will be specific to graduates, many likely will, given that these firms often prefer to hire fresh graduates than mid-career professionals. But this hopefully means that once the job market improves and AI is viewed as just another tool in the workplace, graduates will be back in demand. This is a complex and nuanced story though, and as such, there's plenty more you can read about it online, with 60 sources reporting on it. The issue is, how can you be sure that what you're reading isn't totally biased? Well, that's a problem we face when writing these videos too, and luckily, that's where this week's sponsor, Ground News, comes in. For this story in particular, they've identified that there are at least 5 left-leaning and 7 right-leaning sources reporting on it. In fact, in addition to this, they've also shown the main differences in the headlines between left-leaning and right-leaning outlets, with left-leaning outlets focusing on the impact on grads and workers, while right-leaning outlets focus on Labour's apparent shortcomings. We're able to do that thanks to Ground News, whose incredible website and app lets you discover the news and pulls back the curtain on media bias. That's because every story comes with a quick visual breakdown of the political bias, factuality, and ownership of the source's reporting, all backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organisations. But one of the best parts of the app is their blind spot feed. It presents you with stories and articles that haven't been reported on by one side of the aisle or the other, helping you better break out of your media bubble and discover what those on the other side of the political spectrum are really saying. For instance, if you lean left, you might have missed this story about how unemployed people on sickness benefits are apparently paid more than minimum wage workers, because 0% of the reporting on this story comes from outlets leaning left. However, if you regularly check the blind spot feed, you get shown what you're missing, helping you keep on top of what the entire political spectrum is thinking about, and why. If you're interested in everything that Ground News has to offer, you can get 40% off the Unlimited Vantage plan by using the link in the description, or scanning the QR code. This offer is only available here, so make sure you use our link to get started and support an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.